Summer, let's talk reptiles. I didn't like that. Let's do it again. Summer, let's talk reptiles. So in today's video, we are going to go around and do plant clippings. I'm in the desert. We're still out in the Vegas area, and I want to go around and take clippings from plants that are desert plants. My primary passion when it comes to reptiles are are desert or arid species, and taking plant clippings from plants that are already doing their thing in this harsh type of environment is going to be an awesome, epic addition to my enclosures. If you hear that coughing noise, can you see him? That's our dog over there. He's a very old dude. Anyway, let's get into it. But before we go take plant clippings, we're gonna go to Meow Wolf, Area 51.
Recognize with you when you see one.
All right, y'all, back to the clippings. I'm about to prepare my dirt jar that I'm going to put the clippings in temporarily until I can bring them home and set them up in the greenhouse. I'm going to show you how I'm doing that. All right, so here we just have a bag of Miracle-Gro dirt. It honestly doesn't fully matter what you use. It just needs to be something that's going to hold moisture and is also going to provide nutrients to the plants. So I have a Talenti ice cream jar. I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with dirt. That much is good. So I went ahead and I filled this up with dirt. After I put the dirt in the Talenti container, I moistened it with water, and then I added a paper towel on top. The reason why I added this paper towel is that it's going to help the clippings stay upright. And then I have some shears I'm going to use to take clippings. It's getting kind of close to the end of the day, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is identify plants and take clippings here in the in-laws' backyard, and then we'll go out in the world and take clippings in other places tomorrow. Let's get it. So this first plant that we have here is in the mint family. There's a couple ways that you can tell that. One, by simply touching it and smelling it, but you can also look at the stem. Plants in the mint family, in terms of herbs, are going to have a nice square stem like this guy does. What we want to do in terms of cuttings, we're going to look for a stem that isn't flowering like this one is. So something like this guy that isn't flowering. And then we're going to make sure that we have at least 4 nodes. I like to have 2 nodes in the soil and 2 nodes, at least 2 nodes in the soil and at least 2 nodes above the soil. So that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to cut it about right here. So once I do my cutting, the next step is to remove the leaves from the nodes. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to cut all these leaves off here. That's node 1. That's node 2, node 3, and then looking at the top, I'm also going to cut off all these little extra leaves here too. So this guy, this one, this one, and this one. And then I'm going to place inside of the soil this node and this node, with these nodes above the soil. And there we have it. Our first clipping is done. My goal is to fill 2 of these guys up with as many clippings as I can find. Mint is a really good plant because, one, it's insanely invasive and will survive in almost any circumstances and reproduce in almost any circumstances. The main goal for taking these clippings while we're in this desert environment is to find plants that are specific to the desert environment and that are going to survive. So it's the next day, and per usual, Steph and I are doing stuff that we probably shouldn't be doing. There was a gate that said no parking, but it didn't say no entering. So we entered. We're out with the dogs. I have my supplies to take clippings, and there are so many options all around us to take clippings from. I'll show you more of that in a second. So this is the first plant that we're going to take clippings from. I'm going to identify it in a moment and tell you what it is, but I'll go ahead and grab the clipping just like I did in the first clipping. I'm going to get at least 4 nodes, maybe 5. And the nodes, I didn't explain that earlier. The nodes are places where branches or leaves connect on the plant. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a clipping of this and we'll keep it going. In order to keep the clippings hydrated, I have a Ziploc bag with some moist paper towels in it. I'm going to put them in here until I can get them back to put them in the dirt. Here's another plant that's super cool. I'm gonna identify it and put the identification on the screen like I did with the last one. I'm gonna take a few clippings from it. Hey, Deucey. Hi, old man. So I think Deuce approves of this plant. So we're gonna take a few clippings from this one. The identification will be, he wants to talk to you guys. The identification will be on the screen. In this process so far, one of the things that I'm noticing is that there's a lot of plants where the leaves or the branches are completely barren. And so what I'm doing is I'm focusing on desert plants that still have at least 1 or 2 or 3 luscious leaves on them, even if all the rest of them are dry, because then I can at least know for sure there's still life in that particular offshoot, that stem that I'm taking. Yeah, so far so good. Gonna keep it going. This is a new one I haven't come across yet. So as always, I'll identify it, I'll put it on the screen, and I'll take a few clippings from it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I grabbed some clippings of it. It's producing these really pretty flowers too. There's some plants out here that are exactly what I'm looking for in terms of enclosure plants. Ones like this, it gets nice and dense and big and bushy. I love it. I took a few clippings from this plant. I really hope they take. It's so cool. Seeing things like this in nature really make me excited. The dead trees are dormant trees, most likely, are just absolutely gorgeous to me, and this is the type of vibe I want to have going on inside of my enclosures, as well as stuff like this. So looking in the foreground or the background, this is the foreground, looking in the background here, the layering of subtle earth tones, just absolutely spectacular. These are the types of things I want to see when I look into my enclosures. I want to take a moment and talk about something really important when it comes to gathering clippings out in nature, is that you never want to over gather or take too much. So from each of the plants that I'm taking clippings from, I'm taking maybe 5 at most, 10 at most, if it's a really bushy plant. And if it's not as bushy, then I'm taking much less, like maybe 1 or 2 clippings from plants like that. You don't ever want to take clippings and then look back at the plant and be able to see the the loss, the detriment of taking those clippings away. When you look at the plant, you want it to look as though nothing ever happened to it. So be really ginger in your gathering and your clipping of plants. This place is just too beautiful for words. Finally, we found a lizard. I think it's a little side blotch, maybe? So awesome. Hey, little bud. Gathering these plants was so much fun. Being out in nature, paying attention to what the habitat looks like, the environment that the plants are growing in, the texture of the soil, how deep their roots go. All of that stuff was such valuable observations to make. The haul of plants that I pulled in are just, I'm so excited. This is going to be a long-term project for me. It's going to take a lot of patience, and I'm really excited about that, having something that I'm going to have to see through multiple iterations until it gets to where it is ideally something I could actually make available in the store. These specific plants that will do well in arid environments because they are in fact desert plants. So it's going to be waiting for these guys to take root, waiting for them to grow, taking clippings from those guys, rooting those clippings. It's going to be quite a process. I'm also going to continue doing this. This is a project I've wanted to start for a while, so I'm going to continue doing this in California as well. California, in many instances, in most places, is a big desert. So going around gathering plants, gathering non-native plants too, like focusing on those guys, and creating clippings and growings, babies? Yeah, from that. I also gathered seeds, and I have those guys set up to germinate. And then I also gathered some clippings, some cuttings from trees, and I have those guys drying out so that I can root them once they callus a bit. Yeah, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you like the content, please give it a like, give it a subscribe, ring that bell. I'm going to have content like this coming every week, weekly vlogs on Tuesday, and then Let's Talk Reptile podcast coming out on Sundays. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys more, being consistent with content. That's all I got. I'm out.